Today, I would like to tell the story of a man who has seemingly found his answer to a question that has befuddled all men since we left the spore cell stage and started waddling around on our hands and feet. You all know this question. Are you a boob or a bum man? I have to use those childlike infantilized words because YouTube says no naughty words in the first minute of a video. Well, today's man of the hour is a fanatic for the latter. A posterior paladin whose hyperfixation on the rear end has had him elevated to being an unknowing icon of all rear end enjoyers, immortalised in memory for his bravado and bluntness. But he was also a man whose name struck absolute fear into every inmate in the American prison system. You know, the guys that they tell you to watch out for in the showers? Well, those guys are afraid of this man. Fleece Johnson, the booty warrior. Please leave a like and a comment on this video because it really helps me in the algorithm. West End, Louisville, Kentucky, 1954. Our backside barbarian enters the earth as Fleece Jerome Johnson, and soon he would be entering a lot more things. Not much is known about Fleece during his early life, but he always had a rebellious streak in him, committing his first crime of stealing a car at the ripe age of just 12. A telling sign of how brazenly ballsy this butt bandit was, even as a teenager. So, it shouldn't surprise you in the slightest that Fleece spent most of his youth generally being a petty criminal, frequenting juvie and generally just being a fly hood rat. Then there is Fleece's father, Asif, who was apparently in the Taliban. No, seriously, he was apparently literally a boss in the Taliban who, alongside the usual crimes of his profession like terrorism and mass murder, he was also accused of being a gay rapist. Now, you might be thinking, a gay rapist in the Taliban? Surely not. Okay, alright then. If you know any veterans who served in Afghanistan, ask them if they liked going on patrol on Thursday nights. But anyway, as we will soon see, the apple does not fall far from the tree. Assuming that the whole dad being in the Taliban thing is actually true. Which, it might not be. But fuck it, it's my headcanon now. After 16 robberies, 8 shootings, and a car theft, the first crime that finally had Big Fleece put into big boy jail was when at just 15 years old, Fleece drew a gun on police officers and took their guns from them, after seeing his cousin John Sanders on the ground being arrested. Upon fucking around, he eventually found out when the police caught up to him, to which they decided that fuck around Fleece should spend some time in adult prison, when he was only 15 years old. Yeah, this story quickly had a much more depressing undertone. But either way, now we can get into some of his shenanigans in the slammer and showcase his character both pre and post booty baptism. On the 26th of June 1969, after a plea agreement, Fleece Johnson agreed to spend 12 years in Kentucky State Penitentiary, which, for the record, is a fucking castle. Naturally, rocking up to a maximum security prison full of the worst hardened convicts imaginable as a 15-year-old boy would be a little bit nerve-wracking, to say the least, no matter how much of a hardman act you try and put on. Our butthole brawler, as a result of this, tried to do a lot more than just act. He started throwing hands. He got into fights constantly in prison. There was, however, one man who, quite frankly, scared Fleece. A Tyrese-type character, a big, muscular 30-year-old black man who stared down the now 16-year-old Fleece like a cut of fresh meat. This Tyrese made the mistake of provoking Fleece after brushing against him with his dick in the showers. Fleece responded to this by shanking and slashing Tyrese with a chipped piece of glass that he found in his commissary. This did indeed result in Tyrese getting humbled by the young booty bad boy, but at the cost of said booty bad boy being sent to Eddyville, the maximum security wing of the prison. The dungeon of Castle Gayskull, if you will. The little fish had just bit the big fish and had now been dumped in an even bigger pond. By 17 years old, Fleece Johnson was acclimated with his new home, Eddyville. And that's when he started noticing things, like how all of the inmates were hooting, hollering and calling each other the word for African Americans, which Fleece really didn't like. After some shenanigans in the cafeteria involving cheese, the booty badass ended up swinging with an entire table of white inmates. Why? Well, because apparently cheese was somewhat verboten in Eddyville because cheese consumption was a sign of gang membership. To which Fleece promptly ignored all of that bullshit and started eating a full block of cheese right in front of people, which made everyone very upset and caused a fight. Is eating cheese a gang thing in prison? I've really never heard of that one. But anyway, for this little ruckus, Fleece was put in the SHU, the Secure Housing Unit, also known as solitary confinement, also known as the hole, and not the kind he liked being in. Upon getting out of the SHU, Fleece was immediately put into a new cell with a new bunkmate. A large black man by the name of Big Doc, who, according to Fleece, and I quote, had the body of King Kong or some shit. But things were not going to work out between them. Big Doc liked to do a bit of trolling, you see, and Fleece didn't like being trolled epic style. This was bound to cause a conflict. Big Doc's preferred method of winding up his peers was grabbing a balloon, filling it with baby powder and cement, then jamming it into a hole in the wall that would burst upon being touched. It's a pretty fucking weird troll, but I guess there really isn't much to do in prison. But Big Doc asked Fleece to touch it. Fleece didn't like whatever the fuck was going on and said no. Big Doc then flew into a tard rage because Fleece didn't play along with the joke, and then he moved in to attack and presumably rape Fleece. But Fleece had a shank on him, and he proceeded to start stabbing the absolute shit out of Big Doc. The booty butcher was then very quickly put back in the SHU. It was during this time in the SHU that Fleece Johnson had experienced something. A little nagging voice in the back of his head whispering to him about how all of the apex predators in all of the men's prisons were the gay ones. The ones that wouldn't just beat the shit out of you, but also beat your pussy black and blue. Fleece needed to become the booty breaker, the booty bulldozer, the booty breacher. He needed to become the booty warrior. This rectal revelation was indeed the slow booty baptism our rear-end ranger needed, as when he was out of the SHU and in the showers, he was changed, evolved. That is when a brother with a royal rump enters the shower besides Fleece, to which, after gazing upon the gyat for a few seconds, he realised that despite all that had come before, he couldn't bring himself just yet to take the booty. No, sensei, I'm not ready. Despite that though, the seed had been planted, and now it must be nurtured and grow. Fast forwarding 10 years, a 27-year-old Fleece Johnson is having a wank when he realises just how boring it is. With incarceration at 16 and being surrounded by nothing but rapey homoerotic men since, he has no frame of reference whatsoever of the opposite sex. He upgrades to porno magazines, but their effect is fleeting. It is here, at his wits' end sexually, paired with the shower rump of 10 years yore, plus countless idiosyncratic homosexual encounters, that Fleece's suppressed superpower must have awakened. Paired with his tenacity for Doomguy-esque ultraviolence, Fleece Johnson gained a reputation very, very quickly. One that he would always carry with a perverse pride. You see, before, Fleece had a rightfully earned reputation for being something of a warrior. A shucking and jiving gen pop brawler with a propensity for making knives appear in close proximity around him. But now with this TikTok shite going on, it was mixing and mutating into something not only more violent, but also something much more horny. In simple terms, the booty warrior had awakened. This anal enlightenment could not have come at a more just time, because inmates' privileges were just being taken away due to newcomers who were causing a ruckus. So some people were rather angry at these newcomers, including Fleece. So, upon finding the newcomers and their unwieldy prime meats in the showers, and noticing their glistening gyats, well, as for what happened next, no details known, no mercy shown. After tasting the carnal delights of booty, Fleece became something of a philosopher, a boy pussy ponderer, if you will, for in his sphinctal studies, what was revealed to him during his meditations was that he didn't have to necessarily take arse all the time. He merely had to threaten or coerce them enough, and usually they would just hand it over. You don't always have to be violent. Sometimes you just need to give a person a little push. This is so fucked up. Fleece, by this point in his journey, was a walking buckbreaker. A patron saint of sodomy, if there ever was one. A certifiable snake eater. And he didn't discriminate. Because, in October of 1990, he was convicted for repeatedly assaulting a guard and probably trying to feel up their booty. For this, he got an additional 20 years added to his sentence. Though, of course, when Fleece wasn't chasing or coercing booty into his service, he was instead playing poker. This isn't a euphemism, he really liked the card game poker. Because it's prison, and other than partaking in the Darwinian rape caste system, what else are you going to do? But it turns out that Fleece Johnson was really, really good at poker. So he won himself a lot of money and commissary. Things that go a long, long way in prison and can buy you a lot of influence. This deep knowledge of the inmate psyche and terrifying presence paired with Fleece's hustler grindset at poker meant that he knew the prison social ecosystem like the back of his hand. And he also had the money and influence to bend it to his will. He had the potential to be an anal archon. Douche derriere the second. But did he though? Nah, fuck that noise. He just decided to be wholesome and send all of the money he won to his nieces and nephews to get them through school. Booty is a passion, not a hustle. Though those lines would very often interject. Now, for those of you who are familiar with prison etiquette and culture, the preferred currency of the cell blocks is cigarettes. It's very commonly used as currency because it's a socially accepted vice. It's relatively safe to consume, I mean, not exactly, but you know what I mean. And frankly, in prison, everyone's a smoker because prison is boring as shit. I think the rules in prison have changed now, but back in the day, cigarettes were used as currency. Nowadays, I believe it's just commissary stuff, but back then, cigarettes were king. And people, very, very often, owed Fleece cigarettes, due to the fact that he was very, very good at poker. So, when they didn't pay up on their cigarette debt, well, there was another currency that they could pay him in. That is to say, Fleece would very often go from bumming fags to, you know, the man liked his legal tender nice and tender. After 20 years in the slammer, Fleece was starting to feel that loneliness getting to him a little bit. Those days, cooped up in the cell, were just getting lonelier and lonelier. So he decided to try and find himself a good prison wife. He finds a good candidate. A pretty boy that on the outside would probably be considered something of a ladies' man. A stud. Like me, but on the inside, this guy was just pent-up sexual energy, unable to release it because if he did, he would get mauled and ploughed by people like Flyboy Fleece. And that is what Fleece wanted. And the kicker? He apparently had a very nice booty. After hearing our pretty boy complaining about how the prison is rather homoerotic and filled with swaggering sissies and real thong-clad thugs, Fleece jaunts down to this jiving jailbait and finds him getting absolutely cock-rocked pelvis deep by one of those same sissies that he was just complaining about. In simpler terms, Fleece's unknowing fiancée was already claimed and conquered by a fluttering lady thug. Cucked by a glitterboy Quandarius Gaga type. That, sadly, was the end of Fleece's short-lived love quest. So, the prison system and other prisoners were all very, very aware of who Fleece Johnson was. But no one outside of the prison had any idea. Surely, some people who got booty bothered by him would have mentioned Fleece Johnson after they got out of prison. Really? You're going to get out of prison and tell the homies that you get used as a fleshlight for 8 months. You're going to tell the homies that. No, you're not. The worst CIA torture imaginable couldn't get that out of me. So, the world at large had no idea who Fleece Johnson was. But they were about to find out. Fleece's big buck break finally came on July the 9th, 2005, when MSNBC arrived at Kentucky State Penitentiary to film their documentary series Lock Up, to which, of course, the booty warrior makes his debut at 51 years old and still rapey as fuck.
I stabbed him, piped him, knocked him out. This is known all over Kentucky. This is what I did.
It was this edition of Lock Up Raw that would finally introduce the wider world to our beloved booty bandit, who spooked the absolute heebie-jeebies out of everyone with his nonchalant fanaticism for big booties and the fact that the word no wasn't exactly part of his lexicon. A full character breakdown was also given of Fleece, including very official-looking psychologists and prison guards trying to recount the booty ballad with a straight face. And they mostly succeeded. Fleece also had the decency to warn the upcoming generation of convicts about fashion etiquette in Castle Gayskull.
You know, they got this thing where they sag their pants past their butt. It's a style, they call it some sort of gangster style. You know, it's sexy to us, right? And see, but they weren't prepared for this, right? So you sag your pants in her, man, somebody be up in your butt, you know, and it's just that simple.
But it was around this point that Fleece Johnson actually started winding down a bit. I mean, he was going into his 50s and the younger inmates with the fat booties didn't really want to give an old man like him a piece. And he doesn't really have the vigour to pursue anymore. And he straight up admitted this to the documentary crew. Of course, wording it so that it was very, very evident that he was eyeing up their booty.
Y'all had been in her back then in them days, and as much as I like booty, I probably felt one of y'all butts. And y'all was walking past me and dared you to say something.
As you could probably imagine, Fleece's entire appearance on Lock Up Raw became a massive fucking meme, embodying and reinforcing the stereotype of prison being a zesty place full of fruity fellas that will pounce on you the second you drop the soap. One such person who got a light bulb moment from such a character is one acclaimed cartoonist and professional black person, Aaron McGruder, who developed a comic series turned TV show that you might have heard of called The Boondocks. The Boondocks Season 3, Episode 8 sees renowned pedo hater Chris Hansen square off against his greatest threat yet. The Booty Warrior, who willingly walks into the sting knowing it's a sting, so that he may get within arm's reach of his true goal, Chris Hansen's sweetmeats.
I tell you what, I like you, and I want you. Now we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. The choice is yours.
Well, I don't think you and I will be doing anything any kind of way.
Okay, I see you choosing the hard way.
This interpretation of our gaped crusader naturally further entrenched the Booty Warrior's legend into the black cultural zeitgeist. And Fleece Johnson fucking hated it. Fleece absolutely hated it because it showed the need for Fleece to assault a man to get his booty. When, as we all know, a lot of the time, he didn't need to do that. He didn't have to run to the booty ran to him. How did he learn this power? Well, he had a high speech skill, you see. The serial gay rapist objected to his portrayal as an aggressive serial gay rapist. There's a difference. Now, a very long time ago, I actually mentioned Fleece Johnson on a podcast, and I got an email from a prison guard who claimed to have worked in the same prison that Fleece was in. And for the life of me, I cannot find the email anywhere, but what the prison guard told me was that if anyone, guards or other prisoners, mentioned that Boondocks episode to him, or God forbid, called him the Booty Warrior, Fleece would just start swinging. He would just go into an absolute fit of rage and start attacking everyone around him to the point where it took about 5 guards to restrain him. He fucking hated it. He absolutely hated the meme that he had become. Between 1981 and 2013, Fleece Johnson had been up for parole upwards of 13 times, all of which were fruitless. Primarily over the assaulting of officers and supposedly trying to fuel them up while doing so. However, a glimmer of hope shone through, as on July the 28th, 2015, a hearing occurred that recommended a parole arrangement. Happy days. The proposed date, September the 1st, 2015. So, did he get out then? I don't know. There's actually a bunch of conflicting sources as to when exactly Fleece Johnson was liberated from Castle Gayskull. But by 2016, he was a free man. The absolutely insane gay rapist is out. He's walking around. He's probably the exact same streets that you take to work every morning. He's out. He's walking around and roaming the streets. Booty Warrior unchained. So, how has Fleece reintegrated into society now that he's a free man after 44 odd years in prison? Well, to the surprise of absolutely no one, it's been rather difficult for him. On top of the assumed difficulty of finding work due to being an ex-convict, Fleece actually had difficulty getting and holding jobs because of his lockup and Boondocks reputation as the Booty Warrior. Naturally, people would be rather uncomfortable with a 60-year-old gay rape legend handing them their Big Mac. But despite all of this, Fleece persevered and not only seemingly got himself some income, but also got himself a wife. Not a prison wife, a woman, an actual fucking woman, and it seems to be consenting. Normally, I wouldn't have to say that, but, you know. So, where is our retired rump wrangler now? Well, you can actually find him giving interviews on a YouTube channel called Hustler's Spirit. Practically all of the information that we sourced for this video was from these interviews, though I will admit we skimmed and omitted so much of it for 2 reasons. One, YouTube is probably already antsy enough with what we've covered in this video, and 2, I'm not watching all that. It's literal hours of Fleece Johnson reciting stories from his time inside. It is an absolute goldmine of some very fucking funny or really fucking harrowing tales from behind bars, reminiscing about Booty and how after all of these years, he seems to miss it. It's really surreal going through all of the footage and seeing a certifiable rape legend in his 60s sitting there wearing early mid-2000s swag, like the nondescript $ snapback and the obligatory gold chains. And thus ends the ballad of the Booty Warrior. A tale of a man who went to prison, really loved booty, and then left prison to become a podcaster. The story of practically every single ex-con podcaster. Also, I had nowhere in the video to actually put this, but Fleece Johnson is actually very, very good at doing voices. Here we see him showcasing his sublime improv skills and stunning vocal range.
So, use old man drunk.
Hey, Lee John, what's up, man?
Who's that?
It's a black man.
What's up, black man? It's a drunk, man.
Hey, drunk, what's going on?
Ain't nothing. Hey, I'm gonna tell Celine to see you sitting down, alright?
Alright, baby, tell me.
Hey, Celine.
Yes. What you saying now?
Man, I got 30 voices, nigga. You can never have my voice, punk.
Absolutely inspiring. Also, I'm more of a tits guy.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube. Everybody just subscribe.